you up for that?
Yeah.
And we're voting on that, are we not?
Voting on St. Mary's by email too. So
Oh, is that right?
hopefully that'll be done soon. Yeah.
So have they
I haven't
done
seen
that?
final result. Yeah, Brandon's asked us all to,
Jack Inch is here.
I'm the fifth most popular person here.
hi Jack, who owes me a beer. Yeah,
Craft
I know,
beer.
Craft beer.
So this didn't save what I
You
wanted
should have
to do.
stuck with Bud Light, buddy.
I wouldn't drink Bud Light.
Yeah, I don't
Neither
mind
would
it.
I wouldn't either. I like Coors Banquet beer though.
I don't mind it. I've had it after hockey.
Mwah. Yeah, he lost his bet.
Are you gonna make a motion then?
3 up.
Yeah, I'll
Three
make it.
up, three up, and you lose 6-3.
I
How
knew
did
they
you do
wouldn't
that?
win by 3,
Yeah.
but to lose by 3 would be 3 up after the
Who's that Canadian?
Canadians.
Yeah, they were on a roll. I turned it off. I thought, oh, this game's over.
He was making a little bit of money.
It was not over.
What would you like?
One.
One.
Makes 20 even. Jerome,
Good day.
how are you?
Better now.
But I'm here.
Better
Yeah.
know what's been going on, Jerome.
That's
Well, I was, Chris and I were worried we were gonna have to eat all this food.
I wouldn't say I was worried.
Now, it better be a good meal because on the way in, all I could smell were ribs.
Yeah, oh yeah.
Oh, is that right?
Oh,
My
last week was the worst meal
brother-in-law's a
I've
week
served
here,
me.
Davey.
Oh, is that
He
right? That'd be
celebrates
cool.
tomorrow and Friday.
It was,
It was at the
There
mush?
you go, I got one.
yeah,
Okay, so
like,
I got
kind
a
of like
bone too.
meatloaf, but
I'm
Yeah,
married.
tastes
tasted like meat mousse.
Yeah.
I call it. Oh, God.
You didn't need teeth, you didn't.
Oh, yeah,
You
the
had a tongue.
texture was.
So do we build
sick.
it now?
February
So,
22nd.
yeah, am I late?
President? Yeah, everybody's late though, so you're.
The roads are
I
slow, eh?
shouldn't sit too far back, is what you're saying.
That's right.
I'm looking forward to hearing Bell's story. Chris set a bar so high.
Is that what it is? I didn't see the email today. Is it a who am I that she's doing today too?
Yeah.
Oh, I've got it. Graham!
Hers will be great because
Good.
she's a lot more interesting
How are
than
you?
you.
Well, yeah, I would think so.
You never
Do we
left
pay
town.
Graham or are you paying?
No.
on the bill?
Yeah. No.
Yeah,
Alright.
great. I just was catching up on the bill. It's $20. I was thinking, how am I gonna pay?
You all good to go?
I find, since I turned 60,
Yeah?
if I don't have food on my shirt, I've got something on my face, or my eyes.
I'm the same way.
He is.
I was fine.
He's just taking a
I
trip
was
down
fine
memory
until I
lane.
turned.
Yeah.
Ask him how long ago that was.
6 years ago.
And you got a meal you're proud
Oh,
of?
there you go.
We were born the same day.
Oh, were you? I
Where are we at, Jack?
The same day, the same day.
Uh-oh.
That is hilarious.
Hot water?
No idea.
Oh, yeah. I forget how much these are.
Good.
Do you guys need a ticket?
Well, the bar's up outside, the entrance one.
Oh,
It's
upstairs?
closed, yeah.
This is 16.95.
That's okay. Better than what I have.
Yeah.
Bigger, so that'd be cool.
Thanks. How did Karen like her sweatshirt?
She likes it.
Won't hold you.
Yeah, it's a cute.
How are you?
Hi, David.
How are you?
I'm well, how are you?
As usual. Thanks.
That's
You
good.
got sun, you got sun today?
Oh, terrific.
Out there.
Oh, hello, I'm Allison.
This is Scott, right?
Hi, Scott. Scott
Ed,
Wood.
so I'm cold. You,
Yeah, they got cold up there now.
to be
Yeah.
for Bart?
But, we just had to speak at a conference, so, going on with her.
Eric.
Yeah.
It's a travel company.
So, starting the pot, we need a ticket.
Travel news,
Starting.
they have all these, retail stuff in.
Sorry.
Get out of the market.
Sorry, didn't get a name. Sid, Scott.
She said, end of career.
Yeah. Well, I wanna make sure we.
Well, now, maybe you get closer.
I'm just buying some drugs. I don't know when they're made available.
Do you want 3?
Yeah, I'll take this year.
Um,
No, they won last week.
Yeah, we gotta start building that pot up again.
Take the marble out.
We're gonna stop and we're gonna
There you go.
You wanna come back?
Anywhere.
Yeah. How many do you want, and I'll, we'll take a
They're
change.
$2 a piece. If I remember right, the airport's not who? Calgary, it's well out of town.
Hi, Kathy.
yeah.
Let's take
One
some
last
here.
week.
Yeah.
Coach, how are you?
Good.
Good.
I lost your daughter's contact information. I need to call you to walk into the car.
Yeah, I saw you, I said, come here.
How we do it is Have we booked the fire stuff?
I actually said he's just get back and stuff, but as soon as he got off, he said, no, he's out.
I'll get back to you.
That wasn't you that got in a fight with the referee.
Do you know what, I think it's pretty. He was a parent.
Oh, no, you took all my change.
You'll have to come back here, I'll pay for the room, and now you'll be $5.
Okay, you guys.
I know where you work.
Howard has no son.
Have you got any of that beer left from
I don't know how many days that I got. I might have like.
Lots of family time. The boys.
So, you know, I bought that.
Well, I guess.
I bought that.
Yeah, I think a lot of us are always, all for the cause.
No, Scott,
Okay, I will call her.
I still haven't heard, so.
I announced
One of those to Raven. Fingers crossed. No,
That's great. Yeah, no,
There's some plans that, nobody else.
Yeah.
Too much left.
There's a bunch, but you know what I did, so.
Yeah.
I gave 12 reviews and 8.
Oh, yeah.
Well, we didn't.
Although,
Already?
I did that how long it was.
And then they, I'm sorry.
The headline on.
Are you upstairs or it's okay?
Yeah.
I'm underneath.
Oh, the third floor balcony. Yeah. No, at the resort, she fell off the balcony. The headline says, something like yourself into the murder, of course, yeah, on the streets.
How about, so,
I mean, someone would say,
yeah, so, sorry.
I'll try to remember to forget.
But I want to come back.
Tickets?
Okay.
They never put anything in the news about something that falls out.
7-week sessions.
But if you're in Mexico and nothing's happening.
I was thinking, you can't be at the end now, and there's still a few more weeks left, right? Probably.
Hi, I'm Jerome.
Nice to meet you. Somebody.
Or your friends will be up there and actually make a big show. So telling us what to do, it's where to do it.
Number 27, East, 27 wins.
All right.
Does it, just breaking an arm is a fortune, it doesn't matter, that's.
It doesn't matter.
There's a lot more.
Well, yeah, GoFundMe, they're gonna do a GoFundMe page.
No practice, we're showing up and just.
As the same classes started, so
Take
spare
anybody
ice is
else. I got one.
difficult to find.
Dress the part.
All right.
Curling?
Huh?
Curling?
We're in Boston next week.
Seriously?
We're representing.
That's awesome.
Who's the weed out?
What do you
I
reckon?
saw me, I would like to, but.
So would I.
Okay, there you go. Yeah, oh, no, I'm okay, no, I saw a look at his face, he thinks you're pretty good.
You guys need
He's a curler as opposed to someone
You
that's
just wanna play curl. I get it. You got people say you're golfers as well. I know, I'm just a golfer, I like to play golf.
So the Preston Golf
Yes.
Club has
Is it that turkey one? Cause they have the frozen.
No.
Oh, okay, right.
Yeah, so next Thursday, yeah, we have a fun team.
I didn't even check, they're way ahead of Pepper.
David.
Oh, very nice. Awesome.
We tried to recruit some Chris, but so.
The problem is I'm
Hickory
working
needs a
Friday.
put it that way.
Oh, okay, yeah. Well, you.
Setting up my other day.
Westmount?
And I play on Wednesday.
Oh, okay. So you're not, if you've got a hard cold draw, you're gonna be like Nancy, not Nancy, like Rachel Holman?
I hear you.
Yeah.
You're gonna be like Rachel Holman, you're dancing right in the neck.
Oh, yeah, she told me.
Welcome and praise to repetition. Not even getting the plan.
What's
What is that?
1020?
Then I-
But it's 1023.
Withdraw one.
The euro was bound.
Well, I wondered if I
That
could
was a
get it.
discreet answer.
Freaking rock down there. The worst thing can happen.
Simple.
Simple. Out
See,
to
that
go
yellow
forward.
bell.
I'm just telling you right now, I'm getting in that habit and I'm making it.
Nothing if you
I
don't.
can make that draw. I don't care. Just looking at it going,
Mark?
you're such a red one.
Mark the lefties last week.
Oh.
And I looked at them all week and did not eat.
Oh.
Great.
You know what, I actually went home that night and I had a little, penny of hunger and, a little late night snack and I said, shoot, I thought
Yeah, I don't have change for
We
you.
should wear them for you, but I gotta get.
Somehow, I didn't know if I had 1, 5, or 2. I wasn't sure if I gave you the 5. Alright, so, I had more money than I thought of either.
Well, tonight when you get home, you go, oh, I got some.
No,
We're not hard with, but look at those on my plate for a week.
I
had zero expectations.
We went. Here you go. Come on.
Today?
No.
So it's kids' day. You know what? I'll bet you you were saying that on radio?
Always gotta test your lips.
Like I went last
They just tied it in a knot and popped it back in. You don't really want to go too far down the
End of the week, they have the big fat, big boards, they don't go that long.
Yeah, you did.
Oh, yeah. What off
Oh, you're kidding. Oh, I didn't have you do that.
So when you go back in 6 months?
Yeah, she won one.
Oh, well, okay. My sister used to go.
So you don't have to worry too much.
Congratulations on your big win.
I can't stand it.
I thought we were
It's making me
room
but I kind of want it that way. I don't really want to see it.
You're married to her.
Never want to be in a.
Watching TV.
Oh, I didn't know that. Oh, yeah. He was the rough house.
You can confirm.
That's right.
You left your initials in first.
Anyway, she's coming along for
Well, somebody posted a picture of her.
Wow, what? I don't want to know. I watched it. I remember after I watched that. I know you wouldn't have had any problem.
Hi, guys.
After all of that, I only You know, it's. Oh, I know.
But even still, we're keeping winning.
I know, not me.
Never saw that.
I never.
Put it on my shed, it really said, ran like down. Yeah, I never it wasn't. That happened.
Yeah, I've been there watching
We get all the water.
They're out
I only have like one
Yeah.
They just do summer So I guess the big where's the blackboard? Get the blackboard. Oh, I wasn't.
Okay, well, we can, into my emails. Yeah, you know what, I didn't.
And whoever's got a bit of both.
Well, that's right, you have it.
Maybe it'll help, maybe it'll. But that's great, yeah, let me just confirm with me today and I'll.
Seems like it, except that show us anything. So I'm and I think it's gonna actually prompt us. And then when we have the answer, yeah, we need to take it. Oh, no, I'm sure we can. For a while there, so I just for like that. Oh, yeah. Send me the time did you send?
I was nervous.
Oh, I'm just thinking.
Okay, yeah, that's.
They're really going You're trying to do damage. Yours is probably
Well, it's just been, I don't know, it's just thinking about it.
That's Chuck.
Go ahead, Tom. Poor guys.
Hi, John.
That's if they show up.
I guess we can all grab a seat and we'll get started here. Yep. There's lots of food in case you get hungry today. Thank you, Ed and Allison, for your wonderful job up here. Thank you to Big Mac for filling in for Judy Day for greeter.
This is Scott.
And I guess we will. How about leading us in O Canada?
Yes.
Low.
O Canada, our home and native land, through patriot love, in all of us command. With glowing hearts we see thee rise, the true north strong and free. From far and wide, O Canada, we stand on guard for thee. God keep our land, glorious and free. O Canada, we stand on guard for thee. O Canada, we stand on guard for thee.
I'll ask you to raise a glass and a toast to Canada, to Rotary, and the 4th snow event on a Wednesday in a row. If a Rotarian has brought a guest, would you please introduce them today, please?
I brought a friend of mine. His name is Scott Lloyd. He's a manager over there at Bast. What's it called? Tirecraft. Yeah.
Perfect.
He's interested in maybe pursuing Rotary.
All right. And Rotarians, how do we greet our guests? I'd ask you all now to bow your heads. Creator and sustainer of all that is or will ever be, accept our thanks for this day and all its blessings. We ask that you guide and direct our club, its leaders, in our actions. Grant each of us may feel our responsibility to Rotary, to the community, to our country, and indeed to all countries and peoples. Bless our fellowship today. Bless the food that nourishes our bodies. In your service, amen. Amen. And lastly, lead us to the buffet.
Ben Jerome's not. There's 3 chairs here.
Yeah?
And there's, so, yeah. You know, because they didn't have
one more just came out.
I just think
we all close together.
Yeah. Oh, wow.
Where's Katie? Which is always the internet.
Is that laptop not working?
Yeah, it's having issues.
It's always the way, eh? You got Everton saying, oh, be down a few weeks.
It's funny because I thought about bringing mine just in case from the office, but then I didn't.
Oh, we can use the other
Would have
one.
been very, yeah, we were using.
Yeah, I don't know, we've been watching
The big worst case they saw the meeting part of it. They just ripped it.
Yeah.
Only 1 week.
Everton's online.
Yeah.
Everton is attending.
You going to be able to eat? Should I get you some? It is in fact water.
4 hours.
Worst case, you can't get this one. I have it on my Okay, okay.
Thank you. I'll tell her I'm better than that.
Yes.
Bowel resection.
Yeah, I just copy it. Email document, sorry.
When I worked for the Royal Bank.
Capital M. That's a
It's good in everything.
Oh,
it wasn't cancerous.
Oh, it was, Ryan the fire standing inside, watching the world blow up the storm outside. It's the time of year to have it done. Spring will be ready. And then you said it's a 6-week recovery.
That's not a good area to
One sudden.
Nobody wants to.
Your own private fan club to come
So I'm gonna have to come over again just once. It was just me and Andy, and we discovered that Andy.
Yeah.
Wouldn't look good.
Oh, okay, yeah.
Can't talk about some residents.
Well, you can. I'll just turn my hearing aid down.
Coffee
Not at the moment. Well, really early.
That's the last storm now of the year.
Really strong. Yeah.
Start getting your lawnmower blades.
I'm more interested in tires.
Where's that?
Tax returns and.
Oh, yeah. At the university?
Yeah. It's under the university. And then you participate.
News has been very interesting too.
I just
All the
find out
stuff
people that
on
went through
the
your course, so
Yeah.
Part of the OPC and Donald Trump.
4 days for them.
Undermine his
I mean, Trump
No, is that?
supported for doing Vietnam 50 years later.
So I always have to.
July of 2018.
Michael Cohen was being badgered by.
So then he had more.
Oh, yeah.
That was like 4:30 in the morning.
I wake up and I go back to sleep.
I did that
What time do you
yesterday.
get there? 6?
Breaking news for breaking news.
Often.
Take it across.
Oh, is that right?
I go to bed about 11 when I get up.
They have to go to the bridge.
Sometimes 7.
No, it's not doing
If I roll over and then 1,000 times, I find if I roll more.
How do you say?
Politicians, when they think they can do it better, they do it.
It just seems like everything was just about.
Big curls.
So like,
So we
half the time I call it running from Washington.
And one another now we started.
Say go to bed and
We got the area.
Come on.
You will survive.
But I feel rusty.
Whoever wins goes to fire?
Oh, yeah.
Oh, I know. They're running. Okay, okay. All right. You get there.
So we got the with the Friday and Saturday.
All you have to do is watch the American news and make you real glad you live in Canada.
And,
You never hear of
get into the championship game.
It is a thing.
3 o'clock.
It's like we've got nothing else to talk about.
I'm not like the biggest Dutch collector in the world, but I know we travel the whole province.
I was told them that way.
So, you're going from Toronto to Sudbury, Sudbury to Ripley, or what have you.
Because the government.
Yeah, you want to be able to work and relax.
Oh, really?
So we get this wind on that. Oh, it's the biggest expense. $50,000.
Not around town, the van, but the way he did it. This is off the book. Don't show. Don't show.
Because what? Come on, as soon as you do everything.
Every other farmer is and they had their, at least it's like his police. Government wants to have their cops. Use this with their piss off that guy.
If I can remember those.
No, it couldn't.
I'm not a member of any organized political party.
With racism.
Kind of like what John Oliver, the Canadian. One of the Canadians. Perhaps the Canadian people need to look into the word. We're American, we're Canadian, we're billions, no big deal.
I want the ticket for me to do it.
Look, there's a lesson there too. You're gonna screw up and like, geez. Do a whole gas plant for $1 billion, don't lose time on it.
Conversation as they expected my bag was.
Lower than the bank.
Come on.
We're talking about, one bit was the Berlin Wall coming down, and the next was Trump building a wall.
People walk the time, but I don't know.
He was first
Oh, my goodness.
king of Canada.
From the wall.
Now can we still do it? Yeah. Oh, maybe 30 minutes.
You did the drive on the weekend?
We're in Colangre, Fort Worth,
Wow.
After that.
5 dogs in the back seat, did you say?
Because they need to steal slots for the bush.
And all the Mexicans say, don't worry about the wall, we'll get it done.
Nobody can like the Mexican.
And the week before.
Somebody pulled like model, very first model.
There's a lot of areas on both sides of the border.
You'll find certain.
It's, well, it's, yes, there it is. Yeah.
Anyway, good to see you.
Welcome. Good, how are you?
Maybe I didn't say face.
That would be hilarious.
And we'd have like a Velcro on our shoulder.
You could just put, add some humor to it.
And depending on who we're playing against that night, we'll throw something on it, like BMO, if we're playing against you.
That would be awesome. What that would be funny.
I kinda had a feeling we were gonna enjoy it, but I've been listening to
Oh. Welcome home, bud. I've seen your post that Facebook, but to be honest with you, I don't know you so far, but I do have your address. I do have your address. And you changed your email, Roger, or Gmail, so I got that in there too, so. For you, Ricky.
I was.
You were behind. I knew it was this table. Yeah, you were.
Oh, that's right.
Yeah, I know.
Probably getting used to the new environment.
Well, Gus now, he's blind, he's getting used to all the new stuff that you remember.
Oh, yeah, of course.
Danny Beaver, back as a model.
Yeah. People already, take a couple games on right, yeah.
I'd love to go.
That's what
Pretty good.
Oh, I see.
No, but I can forward an email to you right now that has it on it.
Yeah, that'd be good.
11, I guess it was, maybe one. Definitely to Paris.
Just to let everybody know that Andrew's kind of rolling out for
He's a great dog though too, I mean. So the plane you got, you brought it up here.
Yeah, so you said, yeah.
That's your address again?
World Accord?
Oh, yeah. Yes. Yeah, I saw the pictures. I saw the pictures that you put up there. I was looking through it, and you know, I looked at it. Dave got hold of it. Yeah, I was home in Fort Worth when we went to watch. The way the conversation was, that's so.
Not necessarily on what they did.
Probably one great beats there. I had no idea.
So I watched the
That was my bucket list. We're walking down to the third.
One of the tables on. Tables on my trivia list is gonna be,
It was the New Orleans Saints, and they ended up losing that. You missed the last second field goal to win it.
Confiscate everybody's phone.
well, did I get it?
Gathered around and said, it was funny because I was kidding. So I could be there until 7:30. Brandon's in Forest Lake. Pick him up. So it was something like
I guess they were just from my mom's side.
I'm heading up to first. So these appointments we're supposed to do on Monday. These appointments are supposed to be on
And I guess we'll just keep on moving here. You finish your coffee and dessert. Wave at Everton. Everton's at home. He's watching us on Skype today.
Hey, Everton.
Everton. Thanks for joining us.
Everton sucks.
Big welcome to Dave Forwell, who's back to join us again. Welcome, Dave. Members' birthdays, I've got Tony Giovinazzo on the February 25th and Glenn Macon on February 29th. No spouses wanted to be born this week. There's no wedding anniversaries and no Rotarian anniversaries. I've got the next bingo shift is Leo, Toby, Bell, and Jarris. I guess that's not this week, it's the following week. We had bingo last week. Put a date down. Other new business. I have a letter here that came out. I'll let the club know that if there's anybody interested in going to the annual mayor's dinner, Saturday, April the 13th at Bingham's. The invitation's here. Tickets are $100 a piece, which you'll receive a $55 tax receipt. And then there's tables and things. So if you get some people that are interested, send me an email. Maybe we can get a table put together to go to the mayor's dinner. Also on the tables, I put these out. These were sent over to me from Jerry Mueller over at the Kitchener Club. They have latched on to one day for this. It's the 5 weeks for Miles Jazz Festival. It's being held at the Walper Hotel every Saturday in March. The one on March the 2nd is actually the Kitchener Club's one that, and all the proceeds from that will go to Polio Plus. So if you're a little more information on that, you can have that here. I'll send an email out on that as well. All the tickets are available online. And I think it's $20 per person or $10 a student. With that, we're going to call up the president of the foundation.
Chairman. Pretty much this thing. Is this on? Oh, there we go. We had a board meeting about 10 days ago for the foundation, so the Kitchener Westmount Rotary Club Foundation. Foundation is the part of our club that accumulates all the fundraising and then disperses it to applicants who apply for grants. And at the board meeting, the grants committee made a recommendation to the board that we again this year give $30,000 to Kids Ability for designated for their Spark program. So we want the money to go directly into the Kids Ability Center rather than sit in the foundation. And because it's over $10,000, I need to bring it to the membership for a vote. And but prior to that, we should have some discussion if there's any concerns about the amount. So it's $30,000. It's been $30,000 for a number of years. So I'd like to make a motion that the membership approve the recommendation from the board of the foundation to give Kids Ability $30,000 for their Spark program.
Second.
Seconded by John Thompson. Now, any discussion at this point? Any questions? Comments? Yeah, Jack?
Can you just give a brief idea of what the Spark program is?
Yeah, it's for some kids who are sort of fallen through the cracks. So they get lots of funding for some kids that have some fairly serious challenges. And these are kids who have less serious challenges, and they can't get funding for this group because they're not as I guess visibly challenged as some of the other kids. So we sort of rely on Lisa and the team up there to sort of give us direction as to where they could use the money most. We just wanted to be used in a program that we want it to be used like right away, and in a program where it's going to be really well used. And Lisa and Linda Kenny from Kids Ability were here just a couple months ago telling us about the program, and this is where they felt they really needed the money. So, yes.
Just a comment, not a question. Just those of you that have been watching the news and the impact the Ford government had on funding for autism, from what I understand, and I could be corrected, is Kids Ability has lost 20% of their total funding.
I heard the same thing. Yeah. So that's a huge goal for them.
Right.
So,
this program's never been funded provincially.
No, I know. So it's a huge goal for them. So, any other questions or comments, discussion? So then I'll bring it to a vote. All in favor? And all opposed? Abstentions? Looks like that's carried unanimously by the membership. Thanks.
Did.
General, can I add something?
Yes.
For the Kids Ability Fund Day,
Yep.
the meeting of the committee is going to be on March 6th, so I'm going. Probably we're going to need another member, just to be honest, because I think we are the leading club this year.
So you're going to need some help, I would think.
Yeah, I'll say that. But on March 6th, we're going to get all the information.
So Jerome, can you circulate an email to the membership telling them that Clara's going to need some help on that committee this year?
And someone to go March 6th? With
Yeah.
you? Someone to go with you on the 6th?
Yeah.
Got it?
Yeah, I can go by
Yeah,
myself on the
circulate
6th,
an
but
email.
we are going to be the leading club, so everybody else is going to send a bill to us.
Yeah.
Yeah, we fund things.
Perfect. And last thing I have here is our 50-50 draw. Yes, sir.
Jerome, just, it's not really a club business, but every once in a while as a parent, you're allowed to be proud of your kids. And some of you know my son Colin has been working real hard in medical school the last 4 years, and we found out yesterday that the University of Toronto Medical School is going to give him a residency starting in July. So,
If you don't follow me on Facebook and you weren't at the Chamber of Commerce Business of Excellence Gala last week, our agency this is our second year being nominated for the Health and Wellness in the Workplace Award, and we won this year, so we're really excited.
Way to go.
Yes.
I just want to briefly update, thank you, about the KW Tribute Challenge. It is this Friday night, right here at the hotel, second floor in the Grand Ballroom. We've got lots of tables registered. Chief Brian Larkins, the MC. We've got tons of prizes. There's going to be a live auction of Raptors tickets, floor seats, or also we've got lunch for 4 with the mayor. All kinds of great stuff. We're hoping to raise this year anywhere between $15,000 and $25,000, and that's all for our good friend Judy Nairn at the Hospice of Waterloo Region. That might pay for a couple bricks on the building, we figure. But if anybody still wants to go, I have like 2 tables. Maria and Claire here kind of signed up for 1 table, but I might have 1 more other than that, and then we'll be at max capacity. There'll be like 220 people there. It'll be awesome. Just let me know, send me an email or give me a text.
And the date was again, sorry.
This Friday, March the 1st.
Oh, wow. Okay.
You have to miss the Ranger game, right?
Yes, I know.
Thanks, Big man. All right, 50-50 draw.
$37.
37.
Better call
Anybody
Brent.
want to trade?
And if you have a ticket number, the last 4 numbers, 8108. Okay.
Wait.
Oh.
Later.
8121. Oh, that's me.
This is the time I want to win, don't
Winner. Chicken dinner.
And the last ticket is 8109. Oh my God.
Mix those up. Mix them up really well.
I
There we
can stir it
go.
all up, honestly, several times.
I won't tell you who drew the tickets.
Another clear one, just.
Well,
There you
it's
go.
hard to get those clear ones, so a few of them are eliminated. And the pot grows. I don't have a bio for our own Val, but most of you have met Val before, and she's going to come up and tell you a little bit about who am I. Yeah, the big one.
Okay. You want to do that?
Yeah, that's good.
Okay, that's kind of a nice ratio.
Yeah.
So, it'll be interesting. We'll have an interesting presentation. Okay.
We'll just turn our heads a little bit.
Trying to look and stretch.
Use the mic, please.
Oh, the mic.
Hello?
Perfect.
Okay, so I'm going to tell you a little bit about myself in the next few minutes. And I kind of started looking at that question, and I didn't want to get into any like philosophical aspects. So let's just like tell you a little bit about my history. And let's start by my name, which is Annabelle Sainz. And for those of you who might wonder, that is why I'm called Belle, because of those 3 letters in my name. So I am originally from Argentina, in South America, in a small town called Rio Tercero, which is kind of in the middle of the country. It's a small city. It's about like, I think that now it's grown a bit. It's about 40,000 people now. And it's mostly farmland and a couple of industries. So those are like the kind of jobs that people do there. Apart from the, restaurants, shops, supermarkets, some kind of jobs in that area. So that's where I'm from. That's where I lived about 17, 18 years of my life before I moved to university, to another city called Cordoba, which is a little bit further up. You can't really see it there. It's a 2-hour drive, but like you who are from Canada are used to like points being really close in the map, but actually being far away. My family is not that large, so those are my mom and my dad, Adriana and Daniel. I'm an only child, I don't have any siblings. I do have quite a few cousins, and my amazing pet, Papalina. And this is actually a more recent picture. I think it's from this year, when we went in summer. That's John, that's my mom, and that's my dad. So, and as you can see, this picture was taken in Christmas, because Christmas is in summer, in the, the other side of the globe. So that's kind of my family and how things are back home. So, some of you have asked me what I work on. And, well, I do quantum physics. I'm a scientist. So back in Argentina, I did my undergrad there in Cordoba, and then I started traveling the world, and my first step was in Spain, where I did my master's and my PhD. What I specialized on is quantum theory, and these are somehow some key aspects of things that I do. I'm not going to go into the details unless you want me to at the end of the presentation. No. But somehow, these are three aspects of what I do in my daily life. The first one is, okay, quantum theory is very, very weird. Why? So that is the first thing that I think of. So if you think of, for instance, Einstein relativity, you can basically, the whole of special relativity is summarized in two axioms. One that says that things cannot travel at a speed faster than the speed of light. And the other one is that physics should look the same regardless of where you look at things. Like Jerome there drinking tea should be described equally from my perspective than from Laura's perspective. If I move, things should look the same. So those are two very intuitive things that I can tell you with my hands. And then when someone comes and puts mathematics on top of it, then that is special relativity. But you didn't need anything. You just needed those two very intuitive things to then build up the whole theory. So this first point here is trying to do the same thing for quantum theory. We still are not quite there yet, but hopefully sometime in the future I'll be able to tell you very, very simple things that anyone could understand, and that would explain what quantum theory is. The second one is about, well, is actually quantum theory what we want the world to be? Is it correct? We know that there is general relativity that deals with gravity and planets and things that move in a large scale, and that is incompatible with quantum theory. So which one is wrong? I particularly think that both are wrong, but that is only my personal opinion. But there is something going on there, and we need to somehow fix it. And the last point that I also think about during the day is, well, we might maybe not be able to understand why quantum theory is weird, but that doesn't mean that we cannot use it. So regardless of whether we understand it or not, how can we make use of it for our advantage? And that's where things like, for instance, devising cryptographic protocols that make use of quantum theory to be very, very secure and you cannot hack them, or how to build computers that use quantum systems and so they can perform loads and loads of calculations that you couldn't with just a normal computer. So that is somehow, in a nutshell, what my work is about. So here in Canada, I'm at the PI, Perimetry Institute. And before I was also in Bristol in the UK and some other places. And that somehow leads me to the next question, which is something that my mom always asks me every time that we call on the phone, like, where are you right now? And so that is the world, or some picture of the world that I found online. That is somehow here, in this point here. So, places that I've lived are those ones in purple. So those are the countries where I spent at least 2 years of my life. And then, of course, because of work, I travel to visit other universities, do collaborations, go to conferences, spend a month at some kind of a program or things like those. And those are the places that somehow I've been to for less than 2 years. So somehow it's not entirely clear where I'm from anymore, or where I live anymore, but that's basically the kind of places where it's likely that you will find me if you ask me where I am. And one good thing about traveling around that much is that you somehow incorporate things from the places that you've been to. And that somehow made me have or acquire a huge variety of things I'm interested in. So I've developed quite a few hobbies. So that one, it's from when I was back in Argentina. So I've danced tango, took somehow a break in some countries where I couldn't actually find tango, but now I'm back because Kitchener-Waterloo has some good milongas. I also started doing pottery during my PhD. This is actually from here, from the Potter's Workshop. That was the first time I ever fired a kiln on my own. And everything worked out. I didn't burn anything, there was no fire, it was good. I also enjoy traveling. This is from our last trip to Japan. Also, there was a moment in my life where I did taiko, Japanese drums. I stopped when I moved here because there's no local group in Kitchener-Waterloo, but God knows, maybe I can find one at a short drive eventually in my life again.
Start.
Yeah, that is also another possibility. The thing is that these drums are not easy to find and they're not cheap to get, so that's something that will have to be solved. I also recently took up on cello. So that is actually the first picture I have before my lesson, my first lesson ever. And actually the first thing that the teacher did was to take that cello away from me and give me a small one. Like, that was apparently too large for me. And finally, I also like brewing beer. So that is something that I've also been doing for the past few years. Somehow summarizes how broad my interests are. This is not an extensive list. I might consider incorporating new hobbies in my life, basically due to my new experiences with ice last week. So this was my first time curling last Friday, and first time ice hockey last Wednesday, and I'm still alive. So, and it was quite fun. So maybe the list is going to grow. And also something that has been constant in my life is that of service. So I was kind of talking to my mom because all of this happened before the era of smartphones. So it's not quite easy to get pictures of back in the day. And these are the 2 pictures that she could find and kind of take a picture of and send me. And these are my early experiences with Rotary. I'm trying to do math. I think this one is 25 years ago, and this is 28 years ago. So that is my mom and my dad, and that is me in case you notice. And that one is just me also there. So this is when a group of, I don't know how to say these things in English. When there's a group of people that Rotary sends for a month to another district, and they go around visiting the clubs and interacting with people there. In Spanish, it's intercambio de grupo de estudio.
Yeah, exchange.
But it's not the use exchange for when you're in school. It's when you're a grown-up already. So the Rotary Club will usually host people and take them around. So that's somehow, early experiences with Rotary that then continued during all my childhood. But of course, I'm not going to show pictures of high school because no one likes pictures of when they were teenagers. So let's move on to when I was in university already. And that's when I joined my first Rotary Club. So when I was, back in my hometown, in the Rotary Club where my parents belong, they didn't used to have a Rotary Club back then. So I only joined when I moved to the city for university. And it was also really difficult to get pictures of this. So I somehow have some scans of actual pictures. But unfortunately none of with projects. This is the club, or used to be the club 10 years ago when I was a member. It's Rotary Club Córdoba. It was funded in 1970. And it used to be District 4810, but then we got reshuffled, and now it's 4815. This is a picture of the members of the district that attended one of the analog of the Rotary International Convention. And this is a picture when we organized this Rotary convention back in Córdoba in 2006. So all of those are like about 500 people from Rotary from South America that attended the event. So that's, I basically was in Rotary for 5.5, 6 years there in Argentina, because then, well, I moved to Spain for my PhD. And then is when I joined the other Rotary in Barcelona, Condal. And here I didn't have a smartphone back then either. It was like halfway through that I got one. So it was also not easy to get pictures from this. But just to give you like some examples, you can't read, okay. So these are, so we had an ongoing project with an institution there called Cotolengo, which basically fosters kids that have disabilities and that cannot live at home with their parents. So we had different ongoing projects with them. And this was when we were helping them equip these rooms that they had to do like therapy with the children. And also we had ongoing projects to try to support the food bank. And this is for the President's Night. Of course, when you're in Rotary, you just make do with what you have. So we didn't have always like a fancy dinner for President's Night. The idea was that one year it would be some kind of an informal lunch, and the next year like a nice dinner. So either when you became a president or when you stopped being a president, you would have a nice event. I don't have pictures of that though. I only had pictures of the informal ones, so maybe this is the one that we actually enjoyed the most, because it was the one that was easy to find pictures of. And I think that's it. That's kind of a summary of who I am, what I've done, where I've been. And if you have questions and want to know more about any of those, just let me know.
Anyone have any questions for Belle?
Yeah. When did you get interested in physics? I mean, growing up in a town of 40,000 people, it's becoming a world-class physicist of quantum. How did that happen?
That's a good question. So I was actually not that interested in physics. When I was a kid, I got interested in maths. And there was this teacher in high school that pointed to some kind of math camps that would happen like every year, like in the province. So I started going there and became interested in math. And somehow when I went to the university, I enrolled to physics rather than maths. Still unclear why I did that, but I did. My mom was like, she was like, when I came back home with like all the registration forms and it said physics rather than maths, she was like, what? But yeah, it seems that I liked it because I didn't like switch to maths. My mom was like, it's okay, like, you know, halfway through the year when you see that you don't like it, you can like change career paths. But no, it seems that it was okay.
I guess it turned out all right.
Anyone else?
Now, do you have to travel much with your job now? You do, eh? Yeah, that's what I thought.
Yeah, so like this year I think I've been to 3 different universities already.
Out of the country?
In January and February. I've been to Oxford, Bristol and York.
Ah, cool.
Oxford, Bristol in the same trip, but then I came back and then I went to York again for a couple of days.
So when you do that, are you meeting with other physicists to sort of exchange ideas?
Yeah, or if you haven't gone, I mean, right now I have ongoing projects with different people in the world.
Oh, okay.
And sometimes if you want to make substantial progress, it's sometimes useful that you're in the same room
Yeah.
with a blackboard thinking.
Yeah.
Some things you can do by Skype, but some other things no.
Yeah.
And for instance, now in March, I'm traveling to the US and to the UK again. In May, I'm traveling to Italy. In June, I'm going back to the US again. So it's like.
Oh yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Belle, is the quantum physics world small?
Yes.
So anybody that's in it, you probably know them?
Yes, you basically know most of the people. And as you progress in your career, and when you're an undergrad, then yes, there are lots of people doing things. When you start your PhD, then there's fewer, and as you move on, then every time fewer and fewer. And I think that the people doing quantum foundations, which is my particular area of expertise, I don't know, maybe 50 people in the world or something like that.
And do you collaborate with them?
Yep.
All the time?
Yeah, yeah.
Well, did you ever have the opportunity to either collaborate or meet Stephen Hawking?
Sorry?
Did you ever have the opportunity to collaborate or meet Stephen Hawking when he was alive?
No, I never had the
Okay.
chance.
Just curious.
I mean, he did theoretical physics, but in an area different than
Different
mine.
than yours? Okay.
So I never had I was never in the same kind
Right.
of scientific type of discussions with him.
Okay.
Now, can you explain a little bit about what quantum foundations is, what your area of expertise is?
Well, quantum foundations is so quantum foundations tries to argue why quantum theory is the way it is. So try to understand it, because from our intuitions that we gain from the classical world, there's things like when things are in superposition, or this popular example of the cat being alive and dead at the same time. Those are things that we cannot really make sense out of. So part of the effort is to try to come up with peace with them. And the other one is try to understand if quantum theory is not the correct theory of the world because of this problem that we have with general relativity. What could we expect that it would happen? Like 100 years ago, people didn't know about quantum theory and everything was classical. And then when people discovered quantum theory by accident, loads of things changed. So quantum foundations is trying to do something similar, saying, well, if quantum theory breaks, if it's not correct, then what are the new things that we could expect there to be? Kind of, so that we don't get surprises if that happens, or we are prepared for that.
Are there other practical applications besides crypto and computing?
Define practical.
Something you can make money from?
Now we're going to get
Well, there's a lot of companies making money out of crypto now. So
Out of quantum crypto?
Yes. So there's devices that do cryptography based on quantum mechanics. There's companies that build those devices and they sell them, and there's quite a few in Europe, and big banks use them and that sort of thing.
How much time do we have before we have to have quantum crypto for our own computers? Because it seems like
yes, that's actually a problem. So basically, the country that builds the first quantum computer will have access to all the secrets of everyone in the world. So that's why there's like a kind of race between countries to see, yeah, let's collaborate because we want a quantum computer, but let's not collaborate too much because, this country is going to then be a threat for us or not. So that's a very, very difficult problem that we're facing right now. But for all practical purposes, I don't really think it's going to become an issue in the next decade.
For someone who needed a tutor to get through grade 10 physics, what impact has Big Bang Theory had on the popularity of physics. Certainly, I think most people have been exposed to physics through that show rather than through interactions with physicists or scientists.
I am not that, I don't really know. I mean, at least now people have an idea of what a theoretical physicist is. And usually people quote this episode where there's two of the characters that spend the whole day just like, you know, looking at the blackboard with like, you know, just like thinking in different positions, and which is basically what we do all day. So that is a very faithful representation of our daily life. So in that sense, it's I think that now it's kind of easier to explain to people what you do if they've actually been exposed to the show. But I don't think it has had any kind of impact beyond that.
Not an increase in enrollment in universities or anything
I
like that?
don't really know those statistics.
What about the cello? Where one of the characters plays the cello, do you not?
Really? I don't know. I mean, the thing is that the first two seasons are like, they're quite okay. In the sense that for how faithful they are to like real life.
Yeah.
Then it got somehow steered into what the public wanted to see rather than how things really are.
Yeah.
So I don't know. But having said that, there's loads of people doing quantum theory that also play musical instruments. It's there's a very high correlation.
Same side of the brain.
I don't consider myself as someone who plays cello yet, but
you will be.
Hopefully.
Anyone else? Thank you, Mel. Thank you very much for coming and sharing that with us. I really didn't have much idea what you actually did.
Most of us still don't.
It's quite an interesting field.
Use the mic.
It's quite an interesting field. Appreciate it.
Want to take a picture?
Yeah. Turn on the lights. Here we are.
I did.
Thank you.